Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to First Presbyterian Church, Elizabethton. This morning's service is recorded and live stream broadcast on our church's YouTube channel, which can be found at fpcelizabethton.org.
In the name of the God who created us, in the name of the Christ who teaches us, in the name of the Spirit who journeys alongside us throughout our lives, welcome home, children of God. Peace be with you. Good morning and welcome to First Presbyterian Church as we gather together as God's people in God's name. It is wonderful to be here together this morning. I welcome all of you, whether you're joining us here in person or online. Thank you for the gift of your presence this morning. Ask you to please just let us know you're here, either on those blue friendship registers or on the YouTube chat. And the biggest reason we ask everybody to do that is because every Sunday we add up the number of people who are in worship and give $1 for everybody worshiping to a different local or international ministry. This is a second Sunday of the month, so our recipient this morning is ARM, or Assistance and Resource Ministry. It is a wonderful ministry right maybe a block or two from here behind the Ingalls. They help to provide non-perishable items and food and resources and other assistance to folks throughout Carter County who are in need. You are helping to support the work they do just by showing up to church this morning. So thank you for the gift of your presence. One of the other ministries that we support is Food for the Multitude. Loaves and Fishes now. It used to be Food for the Multitude. Loaves and Fishes. They provide hot meals for residents of Carter County on a regular basis throughout the week. In addition to supporting them with our financially, we also provide that meal once a month. This coming Friday is our night to provide that. We work with Brown's Chapel to do that together, but we need 15 casseroles, like large serving casseroles, every time we serve. We have 9. Brown's Chapel has committed to 4, so we need at least 2 more. If you are able to help with that, to provide a casserole or 2 on Friday, would you please let Julia Rogers know? If you're not sure how to get in touch with her, just ask me during passing of the peace or after the service, and I'll get you her number. She's coordinating that, but we would love to get at least 2 more casseroles to feed on Friday so that we make sure we have enough for everybody who comes through. We'll take more than that, but at least 2. So thank you for all of that and for your support of those ministries throughout our area and in this community. We got a couple of fun things coming up. 2 weeks from today is our annual Christmas dinner or Christmas party. That's going to be 5:30 downstairs. We'll have a wassail bowl, we'll have dinner, we'll have some music, some fun together. We'll end with communion and some singing together. Hello, Miss Evie. You gonna come see me? Hey. Oh, you're not coming up here for me, are you? Come on. So mark your calendars for that. It's a wonderful time. That'll be on the 22nd at 5:30. The other thing coming up is our progressive dinner. We're going to do that on New Year's Eve like we did last Sunday. We'll go from place to place. Appetizers will be at Aubrey's house. The main course will be here, and Ginger and somebody else. Oh, fantastic. Ginger and Bobby are our hosts here at the church, and then we're going to end up at Roddy and Waylon's Flower Shop. For dessert. So sign up for that. Suzanne, where is Suzanne? Has got a sheet just to let us know or something if you're coming. And on the 22nd we'll have a sheet just so we can kind of plan for everybody. And Aubrey's not here, but this Tuesday is the women's group at Aubrey's house for dinner. I think hopefully everybody who's attending got word or RSVP'd, but that's Tuesday. Are there any other announcements I'm missing? Gary, I'm guessing you and Kip are here to tell us a little bit about alternative giving this morning, so come on up.
Talk about alternative giving. You know, every year for the last, I guess, probably 13 years, we've been doing this alternative giving where we include the Baroko village in Kenya. Let me tell you a little bit first about how this works. Of course, this year we're doing 3 different charities. We're doing Shepherd's Inn, we're doing the hurricane relief through the Presbyterian Disaster Fund, and then Baroko as well. So. But anyway, the way it works is, instead of giving gifts to folks, or you can do this in memory of someone too. What you do is you make a contribution to one of these charities, and you do that by either in church today. You could go back to the peacemaking table, and there's materials there that will help you get through that, and or you can go online and pretty much do the same thing. You can either print out the cards to mail to people, or you can actually send them electronically to people that way too. So we encourage you to get involved with this. But let me tell you a little bit about this project. The Broco School is in a village, Broco Village, in the remote area of the Rift Valley of Kenya. And there's approximately, 450 students there, maybe more now, I think. Boys and girls from ages are from grades 1 through 8. And since we've been doing this with KIPP all these years, we've provided a clean water source, a grinding mill, solar panels, educational supply, and food for them as well. This is a very primitive area, and they've gone through a lot of disasters, a lot of it due to climate change. Some of the same things that are happening here with floods and drought, and a lot of the kids that come to this school, this may be the only meal they get during the day when they come to school. So I'll let Kip tell you a little bit more about this, but Kip has been going to Kenya all these years. Every year he takes the money with him and actually purchases whatever materials and whatnot are needed for the school there, and actually implements these projects himself. So we couldn't be doing it without him. So I'm going to let Kip tell you a little bit more about it.
Thank you for keeping Baraka in your minds. There's been a lot of mini wars in that part of North Rift in Kenya between pastoral communities who rely on cows and cattle. So when a young man reaches the age of 18, they're thinking of marriage. So one of the requirements is to pay dowry. And if they don't have dowry, they look across to the other village and see if there are cows there. So they go and take it. So that has been happening for a while. And so peace is very, very important. People have been trying to negotiate for peace, but oftentimes it just starts all over again. Then apart from that, then there's the climate change. The global warming has affected Baraka. Baraka is situated on an escarpment, and so when mudslides begin at the top, it hits Baraka very hard. So like last year that happened, and it's similar to what happened in Asheville, recently with Helene. And so because Baraka is not in a place where media goes often, nobody knows unless you hear from what's happened from my family and people whom I know. So anyway, Baraka is very grateful. That school was so tiny when we started, and when we put water and grinding mill, the population just tripled. And so everybody wants to go to that, to send their kids to their school. And it's also more peaceful than the schools near the border where fighting is taking place. So people rather have their kids safe in Baraka. That's what has made the population grow. So they are still trying to repair the water, and they don't have the machinery to do it, so they do it in a very primitive way. They plant grass so that it can support the pipes, and so they wait for that grass to grow and then put the pipes on top of it, and that's working. It's continuing. But the main event for this year is to establish a seed bank. And GMO seeds is undermining the indigenous seeds. And GMO, you cannot regrow them. You cannot harvest the seeds, and then So when that crop is done, then you have to go to the company and buy, and they are very expensive. And when you buy GMO, you also have to buy the other things that support those seeds, like fertilizers and so on. And people cannot afford that. So we want to promote the indigenous seeds and create a bank. And what this bank will do is keep the seeds in a safe place, and then share it with other communities that are fighting, so that they would see these seeds to bring peace. And women are mostly the seed keepers, sorry, in the place. And so this will really go a long way in having women being the peacekeepers in the community. One other thing about, just to highlight this thing about women with peace. Women in Baraka, in that community, they wear a cowrie shell belt. And so when they give birth to a baby, after they have given birth, they wear that belt to host them until they get healed and get well again. Now, when there is war or even a fight between the siblings, a mother would remove that belt and put it in between the fighting partners, and that stops completely. It is so highly respected. So mothers, when there's war like between this aisle and this other aisle, and mother comes and puts that belt in the middle there, that has to stop. And so they are really great peacekeepers. Thank you for your support, and please remember seeds. And we're going to grow this bank so that more people will benefit from it. And then that will take care of hunger for the kids. Because we don't want, this will not continue for a long time, forever. So we want Parako School to be able to be self-sustaining. Thank you.
Opportunities to support Baroko. Friends, as we gather this morning in worship, we begin or continue as we do every Sunday, which is celebrating the gospel around which we gather. Reminder that God loves every one of us and all people everywhere, without condition and without exception, because in our unique and beautiful diversity, we are all a reflection of God's image. That includes us in our diverse sexual and gender identities, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, straight, male, female, non-binary. It includes our diverse racial and ethnic identities, black, brown, white, Asian, indigenous. Our diverse religious identities, wherever we are looking for wisdom and spiritual growth in the world, in Christianity and other religions, in nature, in the science and the world around us. It includes and embraces all people, rich and poor, young and old, able-bodied and disabled, suffering and rejoicing, because God's love welcomes and embraces all people everywhere, without condition and without exception. So welcome, God's beloved community. We give thanks this morning for the ancestral Cherokee land that we are gathered on today, for the loving waters of the Watauga and the Doe River watersheds that nourish us, and we commit ourselves anew every week to work for truth and reconciliation among all people, to respect each other and creation in everything we say and do. So let us worship.
From the prophet Isaiah, how beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, who proclaim peace, who bring good tidings, who proclaim salvation. Today we light the second candle of Advent, the candle of peace. In the Gospel of Mark, we meet a God who calls us to action, to prepare the way of the Lord through our lives and choices. God of peace, move us beyond words to lives that reflect your love. Mark's gospel begins with John the Baptist crying out in the wilderness, urging us to repent and live out our faith in tangible ways. God of action, help us to serve, to love, and to live out the good news with our hands and feet. As we light this candle, may we find peace in the God who invites us to prepare the way. Shine the light of your peace in us, through us again in this Advent season.
Take a breath and take a moment to reflect and give thanks. God of hope, peace, joy, and love, as we prepare to welcome you anew this Advent, may these lights guide us, inspire us, and remind us of your presence among us. Shine the light of your peace in us and through us again this Advent season. Invite us to rise in body or spirit. As we're able, we'll join together in our hymn 110, Love Has Come.
Love has come, a light in the dark.
From Mark chapter 1, verses 9 through 11, and then Mark chapter 10, verse 45. In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And just as he was coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens torn apart and the Spirit descending like a dove upon him. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my Son, the beloved. With you I am well pleased." For the human one came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for the many.
Thank you all. Thanks to all of our musicians who are sharing talents this morning and throughout Advent on all the extra wonderful music we get to hear. Ginger, thank you for reading for us this morning. So, as I shared with you last week, we got 4 Sundays of Advent every year. We got 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. We were trying something different this year. We're just going to look at each one of the 4 of them. And if the idea of Advent is that, or the idea of the Gospels is that they're trying to tell a story about Jesus and somehow point readers to look for God in the world in different ways or different places. Each gospel writer has their own perspective for where to look. And so we're going to kind of set those out side by side during Advent and think about what each one invites us to do, to where to look for God. So last Sunday, we read part of Matthew's nativity story. And if you weren't here, don't remember, Matthew's the one that has the magi, the magicians, come from the east to bring gifts to Jesus. They follow a star. Herod is trying to find this baby and have him killed. Matthew's gospel sets up the idea that a place to look for God in the world especially calls our attention to looking toward outsiders, toward foreigners, toward those who are kind of outside of our circle. Matthew does that throughout his gospel. This morning, just going in canonical order in our Bible, the next gospel is Mark. And since Ginger did not read for us Mark's nativity story, let me just go ahead and share Mark's nativity story now. Yeah, right. I mean, it's great, right? Mark doesn't have anything at all to say about Jesus' birth. He does not include a single sentence about it, like how Jesus was born at an early age or anything profound like that. Yes, it's a great dad joke, thank you. As far as Mark's gospel goes, the Jesus story starts when he's 30, give or take. It begins with his baptism and ends about 3 years later, 36 hours after Jesus' death. Now, Mark, by the way, is the earliest of the four Gospels written, or at least that we have. And it was probably written sometime around the year 70 CE, 70 Common Era AD. So about 40 years or so after Jesus' death. And at least a decade or two before the next Gospels written, which would be Matthew and Luke. So the earliest account that we have of Jesus' life includes nothing at all about his birth, or his childhood, or his teenage years. And is it because, I wonder, I'm just speculating here, but is it because maybe Mark considered all that stuff somewhat unremarkable when he set out to tell the story of Jesus? And so instead, Mark chose to write about the things that he thought were remarkable, were outstanding, were worthy of our attention. I mean, like if any of you were to set out to write a book about my life, and let me know if you do, I want some royalties from that. But you might mention all of my really impressive accomplishments, like how I managed to be both this good-looking and such an amazing preacher, all while staying so remarkably humble. You'd want to talk about stuff like that. You might not find it as interesting to talk about the more mundane aspects of my life. What I had for dinner last Wednesday night, leftover pot roast, or what the name of my first dog was. It was Taco. So all the gospel writers had this goal of trying to communicate to their readers that God is somehow present in a special way in this person of Jesus. For Mark, that story begins 3 or so decades into Jesus' life. And look, I love the Christmas stories. I'm pretty sure I have not missed a single Charlie Brown Christmas in all of my 51 years on this earth. You too? Yeah, I know, I love that one. The other three Gospels all start off by describing something that is unique or special or whatever about Jesus coming into the world. But for Mark, the advent of God into the world is not revealed through a noteworthy birth, or through a guiding star, or through foreign emissaries bearing gifts, or through a jealous infanticidal king. For Mark, God is revealed through Jesus' actions and his teachings, through the things that he does with his life. So it's not a story of someone who was born special and then lived into those expectations, but a story of someone whose entry into the world maybe wasn't so unusual as to warrant mentioning, but whose life instead was lived in such a way that it was a demonstration of the advent of God into the world. So for Mark, the birth of Jesus is not the starting point of the story that he's worried about telling. The starting point is when Jesus begins his ministry. The starting point is when Jesus steps into those waters of the Jordan to be baptized by John, and then Jesus hears that confirmation from God that he is a beloved child of God. You catch that in what Ginger read this morning? God says, "You are my son, my child, and I love you, and I am well pleased with you." That's not just a message for Jesus, by the way. It's for every single one of us. And so maybe there's a lesson in that for us during this Advent season. Maybe Mark is reminding us that the advent of God in our world and in our lives isn't about the beginning, isn't about being born into a unique lineage or an unusual or special situation. But the advent of God in our lives and in our world is about what we do with the life that we have. It's about how we live, how we love, how we serve. It's about the choices that we make and the impact we have on the people around us. Think about that for just a minute. This is the season of looking for God in the world. And I think what Mark is suggesting is that the way that we see God in the world is through our actions and our choices. Kind of a sacred partnership between us and God. And so our actions give an opening for God's grace and God's Spirit to be present, to be known, to be experienced. And that is both a great responsibility and an incredible opportunity. We light these Advent, or when Pippa lights these Advent candles for us each Sunday, we are not just counting the days until Christmas. We are proclaiming that Christ is still present in the world, and that holy presence is revealed every time we act with love, with compassion, with justice, with courage. The light of these candles is meant to inspire us to be lights in the darkness, to live in a way that makes God's presence known to the people and the communities around us. As we get ready for Christmas in a couple of weeks, let's not just focus on celebrating Jesus' birth a couple thousand years ago, but to celebrate the ways that God still comes into the world today through us, that our lives may be a demonstration of God's advent into the world, just as Jesus' life was. We do that, we are writing our own version of the gospel, not just with words on a page, but with our actions and our lives. Blessed be. Amen. Invite us. We'll stand. If you have an offering you want to share, there are plates up front. You can bring it forward, put it in the plate as we sing our doxology, which again is different than our normal one we're doing, but during Advent, you'll find the words in your bulletin, and the tune is a familiar one. So let's stand and sing. Should have looked this up before I decided to use this for my invitation or charge to us today. But I think it was Augustine who said this. I might be wrong, so forgive me if I'm misquoting. And you all will let me know, I know. But I think it was Augustine who said something to the effect of, think about how you live your lives, because your lives may be the only gospel that somebody ever reads. And I think that's Mark's invitation to us. Francis, thank you. Yes, Francis. No, that makes more sense too. Thanks, Gary. I told you somebody would let me know if I was wrong. Thanks, Gary. So St. Francis says, think about how you live your lives. It may be the only gospel some people ever read. And I think that's Mark's invitation through Jesus. He says, look at how this person lives his life, and this is a sign of how God is present in the world. That didn't end 2,000 years ago. That continues. We, all of us, show forth God's presence in the world through how we live and act and love. So let that be our invitation to make God's presence known again this Advent as we go out from here. Let me invite us to circle up. If you're comfortable joining hands, please do so. We'll sing a benediction to each other. The words are printed in your bulletin if you need them. Pippa, you're good. Come on up. Yep.